Let's begin with the war in the Middle East and new developments that are happening overnight. At least 2 ships came under attack in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran claims it has seized the vessels. Now, this all comes just hours after President Trump extended the ceasefire but kept the blockade on Iranian ports in place. Tehran has called this, quote, an act of war. For more on this, we're joined by CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio from our London newsroom. So, Ramy, first off, tell us more about these attacks in the Strait of Hormuz. These ships, were they flagged? Where are they from?
Yeah, Vlad, from what we understand, these 3 vessels that were attacked were not Iranian flagged. 2 were from Panama, 1 was from Greece. And the info we're getting here from Iran's state-linked news agency, Tasnim, is that the IRGC did attack 3 cargo ships in that strait, trying to get out. 2 of them, they say, have been seized, but 1 did manage to get away. And we've got some visuals here to show you from marine traffic. One of the seized ships is this one here. It's called the MSC Francesca, a Panama flagship. That dotted line you see there, though, is where she had turned off her AIS tracking system. So that was an extrapolation of where she sailed. But then you see here, she was attacked off the coast of Iran, stopped along with the MSC Epaminondas. The RGC said that they were operating without the right permits and tampering with their navigation systems. Case in point, though, we did say and see that they did turn off their trackers. And then there is the 3rd ship, but that is the one that got away. It's been identified as the MSC Euphoria by our partners at the BBC. And look at that little right line at the top of your screen. That is where it made that hard right to try to get away. It then made it to the coast of the UAE here in this visual, the east coast there of the UAE. I happened to just be speaking with a Lloyd's List analyst from Maritime Intelligence who told me that this, though, probably won't change the number of transits in the strait, only because they're already operating at a low level. And I do want to get a check on the price of Brent crude because it has jumped nearly 2% over the past couple hours. It has jumped over the psychological $100 a barrel mark there. So we're seeing this increased pressure, this increased strain again on oil markets.
We really are, and it's that psychological impact too. I mean, now these gunfire being ringing out in the Strait of Hormuz more and more is definitely rattling people's emotions, and there are real implications. What has been the response from Tehran on President Trump's extended ceasefire?
Yeah, the response from, at least the public response from Iran, has been more like meh. They're not jumping on this. They're not saying, great, let's try to seize this moment to try to figure something out. We've heard from one senior advisor to Iran's Speaker of Parliament that said that this extension means, quote unquote, nothing, and said that it was a ploy to buy time for what he called is a surprise strike on the country. With the U.S. blockade on this strait, he also said that Iran has to respond with a military response. And then in just the past couple hours, we've already also gotten information, a statement from Iran's foreign ministry spokesman, only acknowledging the extension of this. Didn't say anything much also about whether Iran was going to send a team to Islamabad for talks with the U.S. We also don't know what's happening with those talks, right? Because Vice President Vance did not leave for Pakistan as expected yesterday. So this holding pattern here, again, as we're seeing damage and attacks on vessels trying to get out of the strait.
All right, Ramy Inocencio reporting from London. Ramy, thank you.
Sure.
For more on this, CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro joins us now to discuss. Aaron, why the change of heart from President Trump when it comes to the ceasefire? And you know, Aaron, I'm just thinking out loud here, but the president has, in many interviews that he's given, both on television, radio, and in calls to reporters, sometimes suggests that he's doing things in a way to either divert attention from what his ulterior motives are. I mean, it's one thing to suggest that he's extending the ceasefire, but that could change on a dime.
That's correct, Vlad. The messaging has been mixed from the White House, from President Trump, since this conflict began, really, but especially in that CNBC interview yesterday, where the president said that he was not open to extending the ceasefire, but then later in the interview said he doesn't want to rush, that time is no adversary, and that he wants to make sure that they get to a good deal. Publicly, the reason for extending the ceasefire, President Trump cites the request from the mediators in Pakistan who helped broker those last direct talks between the U.S. and Iran earlier this month that Vice President Vance attended. And the president also pointed to fractures in Iran's leadership, saying that they have not sent a unified proposal. It's worth noting, too, the president did not define exactly when this extension expires, only saying that it ends after that proposal comes from Iran, who has shown no indication yet of coming back to the negotiation table. But Democrats on Capitol Hill have definitely noticed the many changes that President Trump has had during this war. Take a listen to Congressman Adam Smith, the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, yesterday.
Everyone seems to think that Trump has some sort of mad genius to what he's doing. Seems to me like he's just an arrogant egotist popping off in ways that aren't well thought out and don't advance any sort of strategic plan.
Now, in another post yesterday, in what may be part of the reasoning behind extending the ceasefire, the president argued that it is now the U.S. that has some leverage over the Strait of Hormuz. He said that Iran had approached him 4 days ago about reopening it, but that he refused.
And Aaron, what are we hearing from the White House? Anything else about the peace talks? I mean, we've talked about how J.D. Vance isn't going to go to Pakistan. The Pakistanis are saying that they're still waiting for word on whether Tehran might show up. We're hearing that Iran is saying that we're not going to go unless you lift the blockade. I mean, where do things stand in this very delicate kind of triangulation of events and relationships?
Interestingly enough, we have not heard that they have been outright canceled. We've only heard that they've been postponed indefinitely. We know that Air Force 2 was ready yesterday at Joint Base Andrews to take the vice president to Pakistan, but reporters here noticed that the vice president instead came to the White House for policy meetings. The White House seems to still be waiting to see and get a full commitment from Iran to come to the negotiation table, which, again, they have shown no indication they will do so, as they have instead blamed the U.S. for this impasse, citing the naval blockade.
All right, Aaron Navarro reporting from the White House. Aaron, thank you.
All right, let's bring in Eric Loeb. He is the Associate Professor of Politics and International Relations at Florida International University. He's also the author of Iran's Reconstruction Jihad, Rural Development and Regime Consolidation After 1979. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. So the president has said that the U.S. is waiting for a unified proposal from Tehran, but we don't even know who's actually making decisions there right now, right?
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me. Since these negotiations began and we had a ceasefire 2 weeks ago, the point people for the Iranians have been both the Speaker of Parliament, Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf, and the Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi. These are the individuals who led the delegation to Islamabad 2 weekends ago that lasted for 21 hours and ended with no agreement or deal. And they have a combination of moderate and hardline or even pragmatic tendencies. But even beyond these two individuals, you have a plethora of individuals and institutions in Iran that are part of the decision-making process, starting with the supreme leader, the president, the parliament, and different advisory bodies around those individuals and institutions.
So from the Iranian perspective, I'm trying to understand. I mean, the headline in the New York Times this morning, to Iran, Trump blinked first by extending the ceasefire. And what the writer, Erica Solomon, posits is that the Iranians have a greater ability to withstand whatever economic damage is being done to their people than here in the United States we have the ability to withstand high gas prices and the perception that the war does not have a finite goal in sight. Is that how you read it as well, that the Iranians are able to withstand this level of pressure, even if it is going to hurt their people dramatically more than it hurts us, but that in this particular case, they've shown no propensity of protecting their citizens in the past. They've, in fact, slaughtered them in many instances. So this is something that they can hold on until the president comes to the table and they perhaps get something closer to what President Obama got back in 2008 or 2012.
Well, yes. I mean, the Iranians, we have to differentiate between the population, which has been suffering economically, even from a security perspective, with keeping in mind they've been under 2 wars now since June of 2025, with thousands of people killed. Not to mention what you said about thousands of people being slaughtered during the January protests. So the population being under severe economic and strain, and even from a security standpoint, and the elites really being able to ride this out, having the resources to do so, having monopolies and smuggling networks inside the country to do so. But nonetheless, the question is, how long can they do that? And then on the U.S. And international side, how long will Washington and its allies and partners inside and outside the region endure this economic pressure with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, with the U.S. blockade, and with everything that's doing to gas, fuel, and commodity prices, as well as rising inflation in the United States and around the world?
And caught in the middle here are the people of Iran. Not a lot of information is coming out of the country from the average Iranian. But what do we know, Eric, about what they think about this war? I mean, does this feel to them like perhaps something that could end with their liberation, or does this feel like they are under attack? A, and then B, how are they faring? What is their they were in the middle of an economic crisis before this all unfolded. How are they surviving?
Well, as I mentioned, there's a lot of trauma inside of Iran with them having sustained or gone through 2 wars in less than a year, and thousands of people killed inside of Iran, not to mention the widespread damage and destruction, not just to military infrastructure, but also to civilian infrastructure, along with the economic adversity in the form of record currency devaluation and high inflation that has been occurring even since before this war. So really, Iranians are struggling to survive. They're dealing with a psychological toll here, too, particularly from 1 hour a day to the next, when the president threatens to bomb the country again, to then announces that there'll be an extension of a ceasefire, is taking a toll psychologically. And really, at the end of the day, particularly low and middle income Iranians are struggling to survive. And while some may have initially supported this war as a war of liberation, they are seeing increasingly this war as an attack against the country, particularly against the civilian population and infrastructure.
Eric, thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you.